And now it's time for Photo Booth Live Chat with John Young. Hey, this is John Young here from PBN TV and DJN TV, coming to you tonight to talk about one of those situations that's coming up a lot for a lot of you right now. We're going to be digging into the whole rebooking situation and the deposit or retainer situation that a lot of us are running into out there with our events. This doesn't matter if you are a wedding officiate. This doesn't matter if you are a photo booth operator, DJ, lighting person, any basically event. And I'm gonna put basically the YouTube channel I'm following right now, because we're broadcasting to a lot of different places. So that's the one I'm going to be kind of following in the chat tonight during this presentation. What we're going to be looking at is that retainer specifically is going to be the big part of this. Deposit, retainer, whatever you want to call it. It really, I know we've talked about it matters. It doesn't matter that terribly much, especially when it comes to this situation. Most of us refer to it as retainer because it feels like it has more of a legal, not being refundable thing. But that's what we're going to be dealing with tonight. What's happening is governments have shut down events. Right now in Minnesota, we are shut down through May 4th. The state has basically, there's just nothing going to happen. Nationally, things have been shut down. That is causing those events, those proms and weddings or what have you, that to be moved in some cases, to postpone or to be canceled completely. The question becomes let's look at my situation. I have a prom that's coming up. It's a $2,000 prom coming up, and I took a $500 retainer for that prom. What happens to that retainer? Now, some of the false information that's going around, and I just did a search today on Google, our friend Google, and I went through and I was looking to see what type of advice people were giving, and I was looking at different blogs and different things from coordinators, and it's amazing to me how many people have absolutely no clue of what's going on right now. That, if your contract says it's non-refundable, it's non-refundable. Bull. And you can put anything behind that bull you want to, but that is completely wrong. There's this thing, once there has been a declaration of an emergency or a disaster declared by the president or the governor or even your county that's basically has shut down events in our case, that means that your contract is now null and void and all monies need to be returned. Now, if they choose to rebook, technically, the way this should work is that you should be cutting them a check back for their retainer. Then they should be signing a new contract and giving you that retainer back. Technically, that's how the process should work. Because once that event has been canceled because of the government shutting things down, that's the way it should work. Now, many people have been trying to be ahead of the game. And now, again, Minnesota, we're until May 4th. I have couples who are in early June who are wanting to move their events. They're basically going to postpone and move it to a different date. That's a little bit different story. But there's absolutely, force majeure, there's nothing like that when it comes to declarations of disaster and it comes to events. As much as we would like to say that retainer is there to protect us for lost potential income on the date, once things are the declaration of a disaster and it's been canceled at a higher up, all bets are off, and we get to that point. So what can happen in a conversation with a judge? Basically, if you don't return a retainer and it was canceled by the state and they wanted to cancel because they're not having the event at all, what could happen is that entity could take you to small claims court. First off, they're probably going to go and post on social media and do that, big deal, whatever. I don't care, but we're not going to look at that. We're going to look at the numbers side of it. Let's say I have a $500 retainer and they want their money back. I say no. They're going to take me to small claims court. Interesting thing with this is it's based on really, in some cases, how much of a finding for them that is based on the small claims court judge. They're going to probably award them the full deposit back, and they're going to award them the fees. We would have to pay the fees, the filing fees, whatever that is from county to county. Here's the interesting thing. The judge said if he had a couple who came in there and said that they had sent me a letter saying, we're requesting it, the government's locked us down, they requested it, and if I didn't get that to them within 10 days and they started to accrue some late fees or some bounce checks, he said, I would be kind of inclined to award them those bounce check fees because you were supposed to get them that money within a week or so. And by not doing that, you have put them in more financial hardship. So there are some ramifications. The important thing to look at is I'm not sure exactly, Chris, where that's coming from, and maybe in Texas there's a different rule when it comes to this. But with the conversations with some judges and with some other accountants and such, the retainers in this situation. Now, let's say that it's not canceled by the state, but say that the couple, this all ends May 4th in Minnesota. Then what could happen after that standpoint is that things are opened up, but maybe they're saying people aren't feeling comfortable or confident about the situation. What could happen at that point is that you may have couples who are saying, okay, we're going to cancel our event or we're going to postpone our event. If they postpone, you can go through and do that. Here's where if the cancel comes. Now, that's a little bit different situation because they do not have the declaration of a disaster going on. They're moving it because they're concerned. And I get their concern. But because they're moving it without, now it's a little bit of a gray area, and you could probably make an argument. Would you win? Probably not in a small claims court. Would you be able to get part of it? Maybe to show that you have had some expenses and such involved with their event. Maybe if you did, it's a little more of a gray area. But these events that are canceled of a disaster declaration, again, like we have in Minnesota right now, we have to return. So let's move it to a rebooking. Because of it being a disaster event, that we should be giving them that back. They should be rebooking. Most of the time, though, we would say, hey, let's just move this to a different date. Same contract in different situations. Where the problem might come, though, is with some DJs, they're saying that, okay, we can move it, but it's got to be to a Friday or a Sunday. We're not going to move it to a prime date of Saturday, even if they had a Saturday event already. This could lead to some problems, obviously, because if they're like, oh, we really want to do a Saturday, we want to do the same Saturday next weekend or the next year in May type of situation, that could be a problem because your rates might be different. You may have more whatever. That could be a part of the issue. And then, of course, that's a deposit for that date for next year. You're not going to be able to collect again. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to deal with that. But yet the money for that retainer, technically, because of the event being canceled under the disaster declaration, that money should go back to them and then maybe you do a whole new contract. I don't know how you're going to handle that, but just keep in mind that. And again, it might be different in different states. I would spend some time talking to a small claims court judge because they're the ones who have to decide. And finding someone like that is your best bet. Find out what's going to happen. Most likely, though, when it becomes that disaster declaration, that money, the contracts are. I mean, even national event contracts. When I'm going to go do something at a if I'm going to go put on a DJ convention in Minneapolis type of thing, and I've got $20,000 that I'm going to be into the hotel. If it gets canceled because the city of Minneapolis gets shut down. They can't charge me, and I can't. I'm going to get my money back. That's just how these things function when they're being shut down by municipalities or government officials and such. It's just the way things are. And again, it's all going to come back to what would the small claims court judge do, and how will they look? Will they look at you as the business person trying to hose over the bride and groom? Or are they going to feel sorry for the bride and groom who had their beautiful wedding situation? Things to think about. Then we get to that part of they're going to take you to the cleaners on Wedding Wire, wherever, any place they can go and leave bad reviews, they're going to do that. And you're not going to win that situation. You're not going to get sympathy from other people who are, if you're like, yeah, I kept the retainer because it's in the contract. Yeah, there's times where our contract, even though we've gotten them professionally done and their wording is as tight as we could possibly make it, there's times our contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on because, again, it's all up to the interpretation of a small claims court judge, unless it's a huge number, and then it will be to a little higher level judge. But it's all up to that. And when you get in situations like this, they're going to kind of walk out that line and say, yeah, no, let's do the right thing. Let's do the common sense thing. And in this case, they're going to find for the other person. So anyway, Just a couple of things that I want to make sure I went through my notes. Talked about the limiting of future dates could be a problem. The possibility of renegotiating is there because, again, you could choose to honor your existing contract, or you could apply their retainer to a new contract if you so choose. Again, if all of a sudden you changing it too terribly much without their approval, or I should say without matching their desires, there could be some, you don't want to have some bad feelings. And that's what that could come from that. One thing to keep in mind, by the way, then I'll just add this and then we'll wrap up here because I want to make this a short video, is changing of contracts. You say you booked a $2,000 package. Now they need to move it to a Friday in September. Let's say things are back open by September. They move it to a Friday and smaller venue, smaller crowd, less people, and they don't need what they booked for the first time. They may want to see if they can reduce the package to a smaller thing. That's going to happen, I'm afraid, as money and such have been tight and people don't have the money coming in that they expected before the wedding, even though their wedding was booked now. If they move it till September, well, there's money that they're not getting between now and September that was probably their wedding fund that they may have to live off from. They may have to make a car insurance payment between now and then out of their money fund. So don't be surprised and don't be offended if they come back and say, geez, hey, John, the money is a lot tighter than we thought it was going to be. Can we, maybe eliminate a couple of things or change our package a little bit because there aren't as many guests. We probably don't need. Don't be offended. Don't be surprised. Just figure out how you can handle it so it's a win-win, so they feel good about you and you can feel good about the situation, because that's going to be a big part of this whole customer relationship opportunity we have to be able to build some positive vibes with our current clients, plus some new ones who are going to be coming in and are going to be booking dates. And I've got a couple that want to book in July of this year, and we're having a conversation about what happens if. And I'd rather build those bridges and talk to them now about that than to get to a point where all of a sudden something happens and then we have to, the ugliness could start. So anyway, just a few thoughts on that. Again, this is my experience interviewing Minnesota people in Minnesota who work with this, and looking nationally and talking to a couple of other people who have judge connections. Your state could be different. State law is different from state to state. So it could be different in Michigan as it could be different in North Dakota, as it could be different in Arizona. Check it out before you start making some grandiose statements, because being drugged through a small claims court, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's happened. I've been on that side a few times where people haven't paid their contracts and such, and the balance due properly. So we've had to do that. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's a big waste of time as far as I'm concerned, because it never turns out like you would like it to. It's just, again, just kind of a sucky thing. But being on the other side where someone is suing you isn't something that I personally would want to do if I could at all avoid it. So anyway, this is John Young here with PBN TV and DJN TV. Hopefully this will give you some thoughts on that. Again, research, check it out, but really do what's in the best interest of your company. Thanks for watching.